Hello, welcome to the Eagle-Tribune newsroom. I'm Brian Messenger, and with me now are the three candidates running in the 2nd Essex and Middlesex District State Senate race. Barry Finegold, Democrat. Jodi Oberto, Independent. And Jamison Tomasek, Republican. Our debate format today will consist of 1-minute opening statements, question and answer session, and we'll finish up with 1-minute closing statements. We'll begin now with opening statements, and Mr. Tomasek, you are first.
I would like to thank the Eagle-Tribune for hosting this debate. My name is Jamison Tomasek. I live in Andover. I'm married with 3 children. I'm running because I hope for a better future for my town, my district, and my state. I believe our current state government, run by a few powerful individuals in Boston giving orders to their legislative followers, will not lead to that better future. I believe we need change. I believe Representative Barry Finegold is part of that crowd I just described. I am a CPA, and in a time where the state and city of Lawrence are uncertain about where revenue is coming from and spending going, I have what it takes to fix these problems. As a CPA, I am held to a strict code of ethics. One component is I must be independent in appearance as well as in fact. As a lawyer, Mr. Finegold is not bound by those rules, and all indications are he operates accordingly. Additionally, I, as an outsider, am truly independent and not beholden to any interests, individuals, town officials, or mayors. As your state senator, I will stand for good government, which is a change from what we have now. Government that makes sense, is responsive to its citizens, and works to solve problems in a cost-effective way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tomasek. Now, Mr. Finegold.
Thank you, Brian. I also want to thank the Tribune for sponsoring this debate. I'm running to bring a common sense approach to the Massachusetts State Senate. I've had the pleasure of representing 3 out of the 4 communities in this district, and I've always made myself accessible. In that time, I've been an independent voice by doing such things as giving up my pay raise, supporting pension reform, voting to do away with unnecessary state employee holidays, and taking on House leadership when I thought it was important to do so. I'm married to my wife, Amy. We have 2 children, Ava and Ella. Both of us are small business owners. We know what it's like to make a payroll, and we know what it's like to have expenses. I'm running for the state senate because the challenges of this district have never been greater, and I have the experience both in the private and the public sector, and the track record to go from day one. During this campaign, I've knocked on over 3,000 doors, and the #1 issue I hear is jobs, and I have a specific plan to get people back to work. First is ensure full funding and viability of the Workforce Training Fund. Second is help advance our gateway cities. Third, help small businesses control healthcare costs. Fourth, create a small business job creation tax credit. Fifth, change the independent contractor law. And 6th, create a tax credit for hiring veterans. Once again, thank you, and I respectfully ask for your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. Finegold. Now, Ms. Oberto.
Thank you also for having me here. I have been walking door to door all over the district. I'm enjoying meeting everyone. I feel badly for those I have missed. But I will continue to walk every day until the election. For those I have missed, you can certainly find out about me on my website at obertoforsenate.com. But briefly, I'm a registered independent, a small business owner. I'm in the manufacturing field, an industry that I have watched disappear over the past years. A wife, a mother of 2, an NRA member, and a GOAL member. I do not have a political machine backing me and telling me how to legislate. With no party politics to adhere to, I can truly represent our voices on Beacon Hill. I have no PAC endorsements. I couldn't in good conscience accept the support of special interest groups, knowing full well that I would owe them favors once in office. It would be more of the same, just another person in office not listening to the people. When you look at the promises you have to make to particular committees for their endorsement, it would not be possible to govern effectively for you. I am in this race because government at all levels has stopped listening to we the people. Both parties have repeatedly let us down, and you deserve a real choice. I believe our rights and freedoms are being stripped from us every day. We have to start using our Constitution as the framework for how we legislate. I believe in the Constitution, states' rights, personal responsibility, our rights and freedoms as citizens, smaller government, and controlled spending.
Thank you, Ms. Oberto.
Thank you.
Now on to our first question. We'll start with Mr. Finegold. What will you do to address the financial situation in Lawrence?
Well, I think one of the things that we should focus on is how do we help the city of Lawrence become more self-sustainable. And what I focus on is trying to grow commercial growth. projects like Union Crossing. I was just talking with people from Muffintown. They're a new business that's coming to the city of Lawrence, and not only are they going to be good to help improve Lawrence's commercial tax base, but they're also going to add a lot of jobs. You know, what's going on with Salapoli on the Riverwalk. So we have to help the city of Lawrence grow their commercial base to become more self-sufficient and be less reliant on state aid.
Thank you, Barry. Ms. Oberto.
Well, I agree. We do have to get business up there. We have to entice business to go to Lawrence. We have to get the revenue moving. We have to offer incentives to get business in there, to get people working and create real revenue and real stimulus for the town and for our entire area.
Mr. Tomasek.
I have a completely different approach. I believe the issues in Lawrence relate to starting with the school system. Assuming the fire and the police are a baseline, that safety is a baseline, that in the school system, if we were to improve the Lawrence schools, more people would want to move to Lawrence. Currently, people are moving to Lawrence for the low-cost housing. It has some of the lowest cost housing in the area. And we're talking about nice housing in South Lawrence and other parts of the city, and they choose to send their kids to private school. If the schools were better in Lawrence, and all the money is there, there's just a lack of leadership and drive to improve the schools. As many people know, they're near the bottom of the MCAS rankings. If there was an effort to improve the schools, people would want to move the city of Lawrence, and then I believe businesses and commercial enterprise would follow for those people that are moving there. There would be more money within the city versus to give a lot of tax breaks and incentives. In the right situation, those are certainly fine, but I don't think that should be the principal driver. I think the schools in Lawrence should be our #1 priority.
Brian, can I just add something?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Just want to add something. I think one of the things that we probably all agree upon is that I think we need to have more charter schools. I think that if you look at MCAS scores, charter schools on average have performed better. One of the things that you talk to people in the city, there are waiting lists to get into our charter schools. One of my goals would be to try to help bring a KIPP school to the city of Lawrence. So I think we need to have options for people in the city, and I think charter schools is one of those viable options.
Thank you. Jodi.
Well, again, we are all on the same page here. We do want things better in Lawrence for all of us. The schools are important. We have to get the parents involved. You know, schools do well when the parents are involved and keeping an eye on how things are going. But I do still feel that if we don't get business in there and get people working, even if they do come for the schools, they need to be working. They need jobs. We need revenue moving, and we need to get businesses up and going. There's all those mill buildings, all the renovations that can be done, and all the people that can be put back to work.
Jamison.
I would say that while we're in agreement that everything needs to get better, and everyone would be, we are in disagreement about how to get there. I think that the schools have been sliding for a number of years. I would blame all of our legislators for not being more closely involved, and other city officials. There are certain people trying to make a difference. Besides charter schools, I think the idea about having exam schools similar to Boston Latin would be a great idea, but there's no movement forward. In the city of Lawrence, there's not even a search on for a new superintendent. There's an interim superintendent. So where is the leadership coming from to make those changes?
Brian, can I just add just another thing? I think this is important, that one of the things that was very unpopular, which is very unpopular with teachers' unions, was this whole race to the top. Some things I agree with, some things I don't. But one of the things that affects the city of Lawrence is that in certain schools, the South Lawrence East and Arlington, if they don't get their test scores up, it gives the power to the superintendent to make radical changes in those schools. This is something new, something that a lot of people had issues with. So I do think there are steps we are taking to try to make things better, and I think, you know, what happened here, I do think is a step in the right direction. It makes a lot of people unhappy, but I do think giving the superintendent the ability to move teachers around and to make changes, I do think is a step in the right direction. And I assume both of my opponents agree with that.
Okay, well, give them a chance. One more rebuttal here.
Again, we are all on the same page, and we can beat this around back and forth as to how it needs to get done. But the key is we need people in there willing to do it, willing to work hard for the people of Lawrence and for all of our towns in the district. Regardless of how we get there exactly, we do need to improve the schools. We do need to improve job opportunities in Lawrence, and it will all start to turn.
Well, and I believe there's a role for the legislature in this and for the executive branch, because Lawrence is 100% funded by the rest of the state. So in a city or town that is carrying a bigger share of the burden, they have more responsibilities and they are more should have more involvement. But in the city of Lawrence, certainly there should be local involvement, but I think the state needs to step in and take an aggressive approach. Almost everyone believes enough money is coming to the Lawrence schools. What a lot of people do not understand is where all the money is going. So I would call for a comprehensive audit of the city of Lawrence in order to determine where we're going, the city of Lawrence and city of Lawrence schools, in order to determine where we're going next.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question, we'll start with Ms. Oberto.
Okay.
What is your position on a state sales tax rollback?
I actually have changed my mind a bit. I was for it, and I still am for it. But I think a dramatic change will be too big of a hit for everyone to take all at once. It all does come down to the local level. It comes down to finding that $1 million that the state is now not sending to your town, or whatever your amount is. And the bulk of the money comes from, unfortunately, police, fire, and teachers. It seems to be the biggest place to cut. And I think a better way to go would definitely be go back to 5, at least in the beginning, and a gradual rollback to 3. I mean, I'm a taxpayer. I'd love to see taxes go away altogether. But I think a knee-jerk reaction of just dropping it quickly is more of a hit than we can survive it, but it's more than we need to take right now. I think a gradual change would be better.
Thank you. Mr. Tomasek.
Yes, I support rolling the sales tax back to 5%. That's been a position of mine throughout the campaign. Should the ballot initiative to get to 3% fail, I would certainly advocate starting in January at rolling that back to 5%. If the ballot initiative to 3% does pass, I will support the will of the people.
Thank you. Mr. Finegold.
Yeah, I think with the ballot question, if it was passed, it would be implemented in the middle, right in January. So all of a sudden you'd have to go to all these local towns and cities and say, make $800,000 or $1 million or even more than that right in the middle of the school year. And I think that'd be very difficult, because you'd all immediately, you'd have to lay off all these teachers, all these police officers, and all these firefighters.
I'll give you a chance for rebuttal. Only one this time, though. Ms. Oberto?
No, I again just say that I think a gradual change is what we need. 5% definitely go to that, and work our way to 3 if as things improve. But the more hits we take, I mean, how much can we continue to take, and how many teachers can we cut in police and fire? You know, we need to work at it gradually, I believe.
Mr. Thomas.
I'd certainly say, as a legislator, some changes need to be more gradual, and our changes go over better if they are planned for. But again, if that's what the people of the Commonwealth choose, I certainly am of the opinion that legislatures need to implement what the people want, not necessarily what they think is better.
And Mr. Finegold.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm focused on is a small business tax credit. I hope that we can get people jobs, get people back to work. People start working, more revenue comes in, and then we can do different things, teachers, fire, and police. So I think the thing I'm really focused on is trying to create jobs and getting people back to work, and that's why I'm proposing a small business tax credit.
Thanks. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Tomasek. What is your position on bringing casinos into Massachusetts?
Thumbs up for casinos. There's a lot of different details below that, but again, I have been all over the district, and that is what people in the district want. I am not in favor of what some people term the nanny state, where we know better. I don't believe the argument that casinos will rise up and prospective compulsive gamblers will all of a sudden realize they need to go gamble. Certainly anyone who wants to gamble right now can walk into any convenience store and play the lottery and or drive to Connecticut or any of the Rhode Island or any of the other places that have gambling. $950 million going from Massachusetts to Connecticut and Rhode Island. I think the state needs a piece of that action, both for revenue and for jobs. I do not think it should be used, the revenue should be used for spending more. It should be used for deficit reduction. We certainly have a huge long-term deficit here in the state. But again, job creation, revenue, and it is what the people want, I believe, in this district.
Thank you. Mr. Finegold.
Well, the lottery gives us 24 cents on every dollar. Gambling, casinos give 2 cents on every dollar. And I'm concerned of what the impact is going to be for local aid and also money that comes back to our local cities and towns. I do support trying to create jobs. That's why I have a jobs plan. I've also been a big proponent of green energy jobs. We have great companies in this area like Selectria, Nextamp, and I think that's where we've got to see job growth that would benefit the Merrimack Valley.
Ms. Oberto.
Personally, as a citizen, speaking for myself, I don't see the greatest benefit for casinos. From what I understand of it, and I do have limited knowledge, but from what I understand, it may not. I don't see it as the best way for us to stimulate our area, our economy. Does the expense outweigh what you get back, and how quickly do you get that back? People are going to gamble, as you said. They're not going to discover tomorrow that they need to gamble, and they're going to run to whatever casino we build. They're going to go to Connecticut if they want to go. Do we want to get a piece of that? Sure, I understand it. I don't know if as I said, the outlay is worth. If the payback it will be worth the outlay, at least at this time. I will uphold whatever the voters decide. If they want a casino, I am more than happy to support it. But personally, I just don't think it's the right option for us.
Thank you. Any rebuttal?
Well, I think we'd all like to go back to the days when the church had to couldn't call it bingo, they had to call it Beano when there was the Bunko Squad and it was a different kind of America. But there is gambling everywhere.
Squad? What was that?
Bunko Squad. That was the now called the Vice Squad, but that was the Bunko Squad was the. Sorry, I'm as the oldest candidate in the race, just to point out that some of my terminology
is. That's true. We got it big.
Yes, the Bunko Squad, and I'm speaking to the senior voters now.
Okay, sure.
And we'd all like to go back to that, but the people would go to go to Las Vegas and spend their cash, but that's all in the past now. And if we don't do it now, we're missing out on a great revenue opportunity. We're missing out on a job creation opportunity. And like I said, as I walk through this district, that's what I hear. The people of this district are looking for gambling.
Mr. Finegold.
Yeah, once again, what I want to focus on is job creation. I think there's some great green energy companies that I think we can really help grow jobs in this area.
Maybe we have green slot machines.
Green slot machines. So just focusing on green energy jobs and trying to create the Merrimack Valley. That's why I helped start the North Shore Clean Energy Consortium that brings business leaders together, brings educational people together, and try to make this area a real leader in green energy jobs.
Ms. Oberto.
Again, jobs are vital. We do have to increase and create jobs. I don't particularly think this is the best way to do that, but if the voters want it and that's what they say they want me to fight for, I will fight for it for them.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Finegold. Do you favor adopting in Massachusetts a law similar to Arizona's immigration law?
I can tell you what I do support about in Massachusetts. I am against in-state tuition for legal immigrants. I do think that we need to make sure that we have proper checking to make sure that people who are getting their services do get, make sure that only legal citizens get those benefits. So I'm in support of that. So I really can't comment about what's happening in Arizona, but I can talk to you about what I've done, and I have voted against in-state tuition for children of illegal immigrants.
Ms. Oberto.
I support Arizona and their fight. They're just supporting the law that the federal government isn't upholding. So they're not doing anything new, they're just trying to uphold the laws. So yes, I am for what they are doing. I believe we actually have a program that was started here a couple of years ago, a little test program that's died, and it's not being followed up upon by our own state. Illegals are illegal. We're all immigrants. I mean, I'm 12th generation in this country, but my family were immigrants. And we came here legally, we worked hard, we became a part of America. We assimilated and we did what we wanted to, we became Americans. And the people that sneak across and hide, they aren't here putting into the system, they're just taking, and I see it as a huge drain, and it has to end.
Thank you. Mr. Tomasek.
It's hard for us here in Massachusetts to understand the frustration of a state like Arizona that is on the border and has a significant problem. I believe all federal laws should be enforced and strongly enforced. I think that we should improve methods of identification, and I think that a lot of the process needs to be improved. There was a recent double homicide in Lawrence. One of the alleged perpetrators, an illegal immigrant awaiting a hearing. So clearly it's going to be a lot of those other problems too. So I think the better identification and enforcement of existing laws, strong enforcement of existing laws, is important.
Any rebuttal? All right, we'll move on. This is a chance for each of you to ask a question of your opponents, and we'll start with Ms. Oberto.
I don't have questions really. I hope you gentlemen will be gentle on me, but I don't have questions of you. You know, the voters need to make the decision as to what they feel is best for them and for our state and the best representative for them. We all have said what we feel on these issues, and it will stand for itself.
Okay. Mr. Thomasek.
Thank you.
Representative Finegold, I want to talk about electricity rates, which obviously electricity rates are very important to small businesses, large businesses. Yeah. My own company has plants in Massachusetts and plants in Indiana, and we would spend double if our Indiana plants were here in Massachusetts. You talk a lot about green energy and your support of Cape Wind. Yes. Cape Wind, which will add significantly to our electric rates, correct? There's a pass-through, and there's been a lot of hearings recently that have said that we could have bought cheaper green energy somewhere else. Right. My question is, do you feel some responsibility for this as a chairman of the committee that oversees it? Do you feel that it is in any way a conflict of interest to be accepting campaign donations from companies and from individuals at companies that you regulate, such as Cape Wind and National Grid?
Right. First of all, I think it's a great question, because I think that is what we should be debating. I think we should be debating about issues of what's our energy policy. So I thank you for that question. And it's really a question about, I mean, the fact that Indiana is cheaper is because they're closer to the basically the pipe that basically sends up natural gas. So they're going to
electricity we're talking about now, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's what sends up. A lot of people use that to power electricity, and we're always going to be at a disadvantage because we're so far away. So the question is, what are we going to do long term to reduce our energy costs? And it is a real issue, and it absolutely is a real issue. That basically we are at a competitive disadvantage to other states because of our high electricity rates. Now the thing about Cape Wind is, yes, short term it is more expensive, but that rate that they have put forth is going to be set for the next 20 years. Now, if you think oil is going to stay the same price, then maybe over the long term it's not going to be better. But long term, oil prices are going to go up, and in the long run it's going to be much cheaper for the Commonwealth, and not to mention too, we're not going to have to import oil from countries that for the most part don't like us. So I believe long term it's the right decision for the Commonwealth.
So Oberto?
Well, I'm no energy expert. I can't really answer to any specifics. Our costs are high here. Green energy is a great, I mean, we have resources, other options we can use. I'm all for exploring them and working with those programs. It's going to take all of our efforts to come up with ideas and create businesses doing these types of things and reducing our costs. Again, I'm no expert.
Do we get follow-up?
You can
Excuse me.
have follow-up.
A couple things. One, I'd like you to address the contributor question. Right. The second thing is that I know that a lot of the power generated in this country, 50% coal-fired, so it's not all natural gas. Right. But do you consider that nuclear is an option for us here in New England? Because again, we live within 40 miles of a plant, Seabrook, without any to-do. And so would that be an option we could explore? And what about the hearings that said if we were looking for alternative power, that we could have bought it from Maine instead of financing Cape Wind?
The trouble, it's a great question.
I have a lot of great questions.
Absolutely. No. You want me to, can I answer that, or you have the camera on?
Yeah.
So,
you can answer.
Yeah. I think the thing about if you import your clean energy, then the jobs are going to be up there, and that's a problem. If we import our energy from Quebec or from Maine, all the jobs are going to be up there. So we should have the jobs here, and that's why we want clean energy done in this state.
But the power generation plants, they don't. I mean, that's not a lot of jobs. I mean, it's a windmill. It's a windmill.
No. Construction, the jobs are a lot of jobs, and every job that we can create, I think matters. Now, your question on nuclear, Until we have basically a good solution for the waste, the spent fuel, I have my concerns. But I've never closed the door. I'm just concerned about what do we do with the waste. Down in Plymouth, they've had a nuclear power plant for many years. People have been happy with it. But once again, I'm very concerned about where do we do with the spent fuel rods.
Don't forget the contributor question.
Yeah, look people may donate to me. I'm independent. I prove myself to be independent. When National Grid, did not respond in a timely manner, a lot of these energy companies respond to them. I wrote the accountability for public utilities, demanded more emergency response time, demanded that they become more responsive. So I made sure that these public utilities are held accountable. Because when a storm happens and people are out of power for 6 to 8 hours, I talked to restaurants in the community. That could be a whole night of business. So I was very tough on the public utilities. I did not want National Grid to be able to raise their rates, so I've spoken up when I felt I had to speak up.
Ms. Oberto, anything to add?
No, actually I'm the independent, but no, I do think we have other ways to create energy. You're talking about the windmills. Everyone's all upset putting it down by the Cape and out in the beautiful, bay and the harbor, and everyone's all upset about that. We can put windmills anywhere. There's wind blowing all over the state. And there's no reason why we can't put those windmills on the top of hills and in different places. If the Cape is such a problem, and actually I don't understand why they'd want to put that into salt water. Doesn't salt water destroy things faster?
A lot of people have trouble with the windmills because they're loud.
Well, we need energy and we need to use our resources. But if everyone's all upset that you put them all in one place, then spread them out. Put them on the top of buildings. Put them on the ridges of everything that gets built. You have a windmill. It can each.
We're gonna move on.
Okay. This is a good debate. This is our issue. I want to talk about the fact that we have so many incinerators in our backyard, and it's not fair for this part of the state to be burning almost half our trash when other parts of the state won't take, say, a windmill or something like that. We share a big burden in the Merrimack Valley with all the incinerators, and everybody else should also share in that burden as well.
Okay.
Mr. Finegold, your chance to ask a question of your opponents.
And this is to both Jodi and Jamison. I've outlined previously I've been working on a jobs plan with 6 facets that will help the people of our district back to work, including encouraging small businesses to hire new workers and to hire any employees that were laid off during the recession by providing small businesses with a tax credit for creating new in-state jobs. Also allowing small businesses to group together to purchase health coverage and to make insurance more affordable, and change how employees count dealing with health care, and also making sure that we increase the skill set of the region's workforce through training. So that's my jobs plan. I'm just curious, what's both of yours jobs plan?
I can go first. You're right. We do have to get businesses up and running. I think that we need to offer tax incentives to either bring businesses here, keep them here. We're losing businesses to other states that are offering these incentives to the businesses to come there. We need to, manufacturing is a huge one, especially for me. As I said, I've watched it drop for years. And it's going overseas, it's going out of state, and we really need to offer tax incentives, reduce regulations on businesses. Businessmen are getting hit terribly. The health care issue is another one. Do they offer health care for their employees? The guys used to, now they can't, or they offer a different plan. It's just the poor businessman is having a really tough time. So I agree with building up jobs and offering incentives and reducing regulations and letting business owners breathe and grow.
Mr. Tomasek.
I start with lower taxes, and lower taxes during a time of recession is classic economic theory. Put more money into people's pockets and have them spend it. Spend it locally at restaurants or shops or forms of entertainment. That puts money in people's pockets, local spending, local jobs. It especially helps people on the bottom end of the spectrum who tend to spend a higher proportion of their income. So lower sales taxes, lower income taxes. This is a little bit of a complicated topic, but in Massachusetts we have something called combined reporting, something they put in to scoop up more revenues from Massachusetts companies that do business in other states and other countries. It's a disincentive to businesses to be here in Massachusetts. Representative Finegold, and I know he's part of the group that put this in, the contractor ruling. Again, if you're a small business owner, it makes it much more difficult to hire somebody as what's called a 1099 contractor. You've got to make an employee. I have a supporter that's going to have to lay off some of his people because he can't have it. The gift ban for the medical device industry, and I think that we need better rules around health insurance for small businesses. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we're going to move on to closing statements, and we'll begin again with Mr. Tomasek.
I wish I could have a campaign promising state government could do more, but we are not in that kind of time. Our local economy is in neutral, our state relies on federal cash to balance its budget, our rainy day fund is drained, and there's no evidence of necessary restructuring in government. Raising taxes and increasing spending, as Representative Finegold has voted for, is not the answer to our problems. We need to cut taxes and remove regulations to get local businesses moving and creating jobs. Our state's house needs to be put in order. We need to initiate a turnaround, reform state government. We need to bring innovative solutions to problems and do more with less by being productive. We need to change rules and regulations that allow our cities and towns. We didn't cover much of this, but there are a lot of legislative rules that cost our cities and towns a lot more money. So we need to help them function more efficiently and hold the line on their property taxes. I respectfully suggest the people of the district should vote against the status quo by voting for change. Change would be Jamison Tomasek for state senator. I humbly and with great reverence ask for your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you. Mr. Finegold.
Thank you, Brian. Once again, I want to thank the Tribune for sponsoring this debate. I've always been that person who people have told me what I can't do, and I've never been afraid to be an independent voice. When I filed the Baby Safe Havens bill, people said you weren't going to save a single newborn. Well, after 6 years, we've saved over 15 lives. When the towns of Dracut, Tewksbury, and Andover were faced with high trash tipping fees, people said, well, that's just too bad. There's nothing we can do. Well, I fought hard and was able to get relief for those 3 communities. When there was a movement to do away with term limits for the Speaker, I fought against that. I paid a price, but in the end, I was proven right. And when they said that we couldn't lower auto insurance rates for the people of the City of Lawrence, I worked with Senator Sue Tucker and Police Chief John Romero, and we were able to lower auto insurance rates for the people in the City of Lawrence. The challenges are great, and I will continue to be an independent voice and fight for this district because we have to find innovative ways to create jobs. We have to be a leader of cutting-edge education for our students. We have to move from a fossil fuel economy to a green economy. And the challenges are great, but I have the experience, the will, the common sense, and no one will work harder for you from day one. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oberto.
Okay. Thank you again. I am sick of party politics, and I know you are too. I'm meeting as many of you as I can in person, and I'm listening to you. You matter, your opinion matters, and you inspire me to continue walking. It is important to me to shake your hand, look you in the eye, and hear your concerns and ideas so I can best represent you. I will expect your involvement and your feedback. I cannot represent our voices if I don't know what you're thinking. Our forefathers wrote our founding documents as they did because they had experienced tyranny firsthand. They fought not only for themselves but for future generations. Now it's our turn. We're facing tyranny, and we must stand up not only for ourselves but for our kids, grandkids, and future generations. I have been told repeatedly that I am brave for doing this. I don't feel that I'm brave. I feel I've had enough, and I'm willing to stand up and say so and be able to offer you true representation in a way you don't often get. This race isn't about me, party control, lobbyists, and money. It's about us. If you've had enough of party politics, money, connections, all those things controlling the race, then I'm clearly your candidate. I'm not a politician. I will not lie to you. I am not being bought and paid for. I am you. I humbly request that you vote for me on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you.
We should have like an hour debate on it.